Today's episode isn't about business strategy, it's about calling. It's about what happens when God places something on your heart and you decide to say yes.
No more burnout, no more fear. We'll build it strong, make it clear. Not just a grind, but a dream that's true. Building a business that works for you.
My guest today, Victor Dawson, didn't sit down to write a book because he just wanted to write a book. He wrote it because God told him to. And his obedience led to a message the world desperately needs, especially those called to build, lead, and walk out their faith in their everyday lives. Welcome back to The Builder's Edge. I'm your host, Deanna Lucas, and here we talk about the mindset, the leadership, the faith, the grit it takes to build something that lasts without losing who you are in the process. I met today's guest, Victor Dawson, through a mutual friend. And the moment I learned about his story, his heart for people, his willingness to go where God sends him, and the message behind his new book, As You Go, I knew you needed to hear this conversation. Victor, thank you for being here.
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you, Deanna. It was great that we got to meet.
It was. I enjoyed that. Nice to know that you have a vacation home down here and had that little coffee that morning. Okay, Victor, take us all the way back to the moment when God put this book on your heart. What did that look like for you?
Well, there was a heart involved, very definitely, because the story begins with me having emergency open heart surgery. It was determined that I had over 90% blockage of the left main artery called the widowmaker.
Oh,
I was ready to drop dead at any moment.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Thankfully, my wife, I went in and had a stress test because I had a few symptoms, shortness of breath. And the cardiologist said to my wife on the phone, said, it looks as good as the one we did on him 2 years ago. And she said, I don't think so. Something's not right here. I've been trying to tell you. So they did a heart catheterization and found out I had over 90% blockage.
Wow.
And so they went in and now I'm part of the Zipper Club. You know, they cut me open and repaired my heart with a double bypass. And the surgery went well. A week to the very hour almost. I'm at home, went out on the back patio out in Colorado in June, and it was wonderful weather and just thanking God for the good outcome, even though, I was prepared he might bring me home.
Yeah.
And then I thought, if I'm still here, you must have something left for me to do. And it sure would be great to know what it was.
Yeah.
Well, only the second time in my life, I heard the audible voice of God through the Holy Spirit. And he said to me, I want you to write a book and call it As You Go. Okay. Well, I argued with God a little bit, as most people and most characters in the Bible did. I said, I don't know how to write a book. I've never written a book before. Are you sure you got to write the book?
Right.
And he repeated it. And he said, those stories I've given you as you've traveled all over the world sharing your faith, that's what the book's about.
Wonderful. Great.
So that's how it got started.
It's exciting. So why now? Your book has such a timely message that we're called to share the gospel in our everyday lives, not just on Sunday mornings. Why do you believe God pressed this message on you in this season of your life?
Well, I've thought about that some, and I think it's the timing. Of course, God's timing is perfect in everything.
Always, right? Yeah.
Right. But I think he realized that I had a willingness, and I had been doing this for a while, a willingness to share. And so he wanted to share some of these stories with others. But I think the main reason is because it's so needed.
Oh, it
Nobody is
is.
sharing their faith at all. I mean, we
Yeah.
talked about it before.
Yeah.
I found out that less than 3% of Christians are sharing their faith at all.
Yeah. That's amazing.
And
That's
that's,
unheard of.
that's unbelievable, isn't it?
It is unbelievable. That's why we get nothing done as a group. That's why, things change, for the bad and in the wrong is because we're not sharing it enough. Yeah.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
97%
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
not sharing.
Wow.
And it wasn't a suggestion, that Jesus gave us. Of course, the verse that
True.
we're talking about here is Matthew 28:19, the Great Commission. That
Uh-huh.
was not a suggestion.
No,
Jesus
it really
said,
wasn't. Go.
therefore, as you go, make disciples of all nations. He
Yes.
didn't say, well, he didn't say if you're a pastor or a missionary, you're supposed to share it.
Right.
No, he was talking to all believers.
Wow.
So
Yeah. Well, did you feel any resistance internally, or did you immediately have peace about writing this book?
I was pretty much in shock, I think, at first. Like, whoa, what am I going to do with this? And I don't know that there was resistance to the message, but there was there was a challenge to get untracked, having never written a book before.
Sure. Like, where do I
And
start?
yeah, how do I do this? I had
Mhm.
taken notes of all these encounters that I'd had as I traveled
Oh, well,
in
that
my
was good.
journal. So
Yeah.
that was helpful to have some of the details and remember some of the stories and all of that. But to put together a book, I mean, I've done a lot of writing in business and proposals and all that sort of stuff. So
Sure.
I felt like I could, was a pretty good communicator from that standpoint. But a book, holy cow, I didn't know what to do with that. And
Yeah.
it actually took me 5 years to get started. Not completely get started, but you might think that, okay, God spoke to me. Okay.
Yeah, you heard it.
I heard it. And so I just dropped everything and immediately started writing a book. Well, I mean, life got in the way. I had a business to run. I had a
Yeah.
family. I had all kinds of things. I had to recover from open heart surgery.
Yeah.
And so every year on the anniversary of my surgery, I had this feeling of guilt that, okay, it's been 2 years, it's
Yeah.
been 3 years, and I still haven't published this book. What am I going to do? So I finally met a lady who had written a couple of books, and we had lunch, and she asked me a couple of questions about how many pages did God say He wanted me to write, and I
Yeah.
said, "Well, I didn't get around to asking him that question."
That might have
But
been
I
a good
think
time to ask him
it would have been,
all the
and
details.
and then she said, "Well, when did He want you to have it ready?" Well, I didn't ask that question either, so I started praying about it. And I had a sense that it was a full blown, 250-page book, and that this was in July, that by the end of the year would be a good finish date. And so I got started writing. And I have to tell you something very important here. When I saw the front cover with my name on it, was when I finally dawned on me that I'm actually about to publish a book.
Yeah.
Down at the bottom, it had my name, and I almost changed it. And I still think maybe I should have that where it says the author, I should have put the Holy Spirit, typing
Yeah.
by or assisted by Victor,
Yeah.
because even my wife, she reads part of it and she says, "Honey, did you actually write this part? Did you actually have these thoughts and put these words together?" And I'm like, "No,
Nope.
you know, you know me well enough to know I couldn't possibly have done that."
Yeah.
So anyway, I finished the draft at the end of the year, and then God showed me why the timing was what it was. Because two of the better stories, I will say, one in particular, in the book came a week after I finished the draft. And I
Oh,
was on the way to the airport in the dark, or on the shuttle bus. I parked the car, was on the way to the terminal, and I'm reading this message that I received from a business owner in Hong Kong about a birthday cake for my granddaughter, and I just started crying. And I know the people on the bus must have thought, oh my gosh, he's just gotten some news about a family death or something, you know.
Yeah.
It was tears of joy. And so as soon as I got to the airport, I called my wife and she said, you know what you got to do? I said, yeah, I got to put this in the book.
Yeah.
And so I think God validated that his timing was right and he had guided me to that point. And so
Yeah. Wonderful. Okay, so let's talk about some of these stories in here. You've traveled the globe, seen faith lived out in many Americans, like many Americans have never even seen. How did those experiences shape the messages in the As You Go?
I think the main point is that generally people are the same all over the world. They
Hmm.
pretty much want the same things. You know, they want to have a family and they want to take care of, you know, have a decent life. And, you know, you talk about, well, what is the meaning of life? But so many do not know Jesus.
Yeah.
And so the message is the same everywhere.
Yeah.
The way in which you communicate it. Now there are cultural issues, there are cultural differences and language
Sure.
challenges and all of that. But I think at its core, it's all the same. So when I'm talking to a factory owner in China or a lady who manages the restaurant in South Africa, which is one amazing story, it's all the same. And they're seeking the same thing. They're seeking truth. They know that the world is not satisfying them, regardless of what
Yeah.
their position in life is. They feel this emptiness, this hole in their heart. And of course, the answer to all of that is Jesus Christ.
It is. Yeah. You know, scripture even tells us that he has put in them a measure of faith. So it is in every single human being that we will encounter.
Yep.
So, yeah. So you've kind of already shared about a little bit about the encounter, an overseas encounter. But if you want to share just a little bit more about a specific encounter that changed the way you think about sharing your faith.
Well, there are a number of them, but since I mentioned South Africa, let me just touch on that one because it probably did identify something that was significant. I've been involved in Christian Businessmen's Connection, CBMC, for over
Yeah.
30 years. And I served on the international board. And so one of the meetings we were having was in South Africa, in Rotterdam, which is between Johannesburg and Cape Town, out in the middle of almost nowhere.
What's the name of it
Um,
again?
I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right,
Well, you
but
cut, I think your thing cut in there, cut in and out just a little bit. I don't think I got all of it.
okay. Gerrit Dam,
Okay.
GARIEP, Gerrit Dam, which is
Okay.
like a lake and a resort area,
Okay.
cabins and that sort of thing. Not fancy, but anyway, we were having the All Africa Convention there and the board meeting. And so I was there.
Uh-huh.
And we went to the restaurant. The board was eating at the restaurant at the main building.
Hmm.
And so that morning I had some work to do and I did not go to breakfast. And I just went up early for lunch and was sitting there working away. And this lady, this Black woman from South Africa, and her coworker came over to me and she said, "Do you know who that was over at that table this morning? Because they were praying and I could hear their prayers standing back, or I could feel their prayers," is what she said,
Oh, wow.
standing back over here by the door. And she was the manager, sort of supervisor, and her coworker. And she said, we started to cry. And I wondered, could you pray for us? And
Wow.
I'm like, wow, okay. I said, how about this? What if we wait until the rest of the group comes for lunch and we'll find out who it is? And then we'll get together and pray for you. Okay. It turns out her husband, one of the things she wanted to pray for was that her husband was mostly verbally abusive and, you know, involved with the wrong crowd. And that's what she wanted prayer for. So come to find out, it's my dear friend Enrique Cepeda from Mexico who can
Uh-huh.
share the gospel anywhere with anyone in 2 seconds. He's amazing.
Wow.
One of my dear friends has recently passed away, but when we got back together after lunch, about I think it was 5 of the workers there at the restaurant came around us, and he shared the gospel and they prayed the prayer. We're all huddled up around this
Mhm.
group.
Wow.
I mean, we're just like, oh my gosh. So we start to move away, and four, 4 more people come out of nowhere from the back restaurant or whatever, I don't know, workers,
Uh-huh.
and said, would you pray for us? And
Wow.
the same thing happened. We repeated the process. Well, at this point, we think we're done. 2 more people came, and we did it the third time. In a period of 20 to 30 minutes, 11 people in South Africa at this restaurant received Christ and prayed the
Wow.
prayer.
Wow,
And
that's
I'm
amazing.
blown away.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
so
what a
I connected with Yolanda, and
mhm.
we've been in touch. This is probably about 6 years ago now. We've been
Wow.
in touch, and she's receiving some help for her husband and her family, her girls, 2 girls. It's just been a crazy thing. Now, to your question, what changed? The thing that changed, and the thing that I found out was true about many of my stories, is that I didn't initiate anything. The
Wow.
person that God wanted me to interact with came up to me and asked me a question or engaged me in conversation in some way. And
Yeah.
that's one of the big things that most people don't understand. They think, well, I've got to identify somebody and I got to go and,
Yeah.
get a
Zero
hold
them
of them and
out and yeah.
hit them over the head with my Bible and tell them they're a sinner and they're going to go to hell. And
Right.
which most people already know they're sinners. They don't need to remind them of that. We need to give
Right.
them the good news.
We
And so
do.
that was one of the things that I think changed was I realized that I just needed to be willing. I just needed to be
Yeah.
open to what God might do. I didn't need to have all the right words to say and practice ahead of time and all that sort of thing. I just needed to be, obviously when she came over, I'm like, God, what do you want me to do with this?
Yeah.
What do you want me to say
Okay, here
about
you
this?
go, Lord. It's
Give me
yours
the words.
again. Yeah.
And he
Okay.
says in scripture, he'll give us the words,
He
right?
does. And he literally does. Okay, so one of the things that you just shared with us is heartbreaking that less than 3% of Christians actually share the gospel in their daily lives. When you first learned that, what did that stir up in you?
Oh gosh, it's anecdotal information, but I've validated it many times. It was quite shocking to me. I mean, okay, God wants me to write a book and tell some of my stories, but the fact that almost nobody is sharing about Jesus, no Christians are sharing about Jesus in their daily lives was just, I mean, quite disturbing, actually. And it
Yeah.
motivated me, I think, even more to realize that this book could be possibly something important.
Yeah.
And so, I just, my goal in this is to change that number to 3.5 or 6
Okay.
or 10 or wow, could I
Just move the
imagine if
needle,
we
right?
just move the needle. And I remember saying this in the book too, that if all this effort and time to publish the book had resulted in one person life being impacted, and even if that person was me, and it was
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it had a huge impact on my life, that it was worth it. And that's the thing we also don't understand a lot of times is that it could just be that one person that you talk to who's going to talk to another person who's going to share with their family, who's going to
Yeah.
maybe affect thousands of other people that you don't even know about, and you won't know until you get to heaven and somebody comes up to you and says, man, I'm so glad. There's a story in China, this young couple, just about to be married, and they both received Christ and then had a son. And so I'm looking forward to the day when in heaven, when Catherine and Sun Ying's great grandson comes up to me and says, "I'm so glad you shared the gospel with my great grandmother."
Yeah, yeah. That'll be rewarding for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, a lot of my audience is contractors, tradespeople, and business owners. Many of them face real struggles, health issues. If a lot of them work physically, and if they lose their health, a lot of them have gone through this. A lot of them that I know have had a shift in their businesses because of health issues. Some of them burn out, financial pressures. What would you say to the leader who feels like their hardship has sidelined their calling?
The first thing I think is I would pray and ask God about it.
Mm.
But one of the more important things I think is to ask yourself, whose business is this? Is this your business?
Oh,
No, this is God's business.
yeah.
And he's chosen you as the founder or the CEO or whatever.
Uh-huh.
He's chosen you to manage this business and steward this business
Yeah.
and do it in a way that brings glory and honor to him.
Yeah.
So it's not your business, it's his. And then you need to trust him.
Yeah.
And I have to, we don't have time to get into all this, but I got stories about some of the things that have happened in my business over the years in my life, and they're not pretty. I mean, there's some ugly things that have happened or some tough things that have happened
Yeah.
financially and all sorts of ways. And you just want to go, wow, God, why me? What's going on here? Well,
Yeah.
he's got it figured out. It's taken me a long time to realize that the creator of the universe is able to, who can see the future and knows the future, can come up with a better plan than I can for my business and for everything else.
Right.
And so it requires a tremendous amount of trust and faith to hang in there and say to God, okay, do you want me to continue with this business, or are you trying to take me in another direction? You want me to actually change my business or completely get out of this business because it's not working? I mean, you know,
Yeah.
you got to try to hear from God. And the other thing is you got to find a couple of people, at least one, to be accountable with that you can share your struggles. That is one of the other things that is so disappointing. Only 1% of Christians are being discipled. And so every business owner that you're talking to or that's listening to this needs a Paul, needs somebody they can share anything with, seek counsel, pray together, whatever,
Yeah.
because you can't
Where do you
do this alone.
recommend? You can't. Where do you recommend for my listener to find that, to find their Paul? Because it really can't be a family member. It can't, it can't be somebody that, if you're, it seems like sometimes your best, the best friends all of a sudden or disappear if your business starts to do well and things like that. So where do they find their Paul?
They ask God.
Okay.
And if you pray and ask God, it might not be tomorrow, it might not be next week, but He'll bring you. He wants you to be discipled, and so He'll bring you someone. Obviously, you want to have someone who's spiritually mature, more mature than you are, anyway, and who's on solid ground with from a biblical viewpoint, a worldview. But he'll bring somebody. Why wouldn't he want to bring somebody to help you and disciple you? He
That's
will.
true.
And it's the same's true about Paul being discipled, someone else, a Timothy. I hear guys saying all the time, well, I just don't know where to find one. I can't run
Yeah.
across one. Well, ask God to bring one to you. Why in the world
Point.
wouldn't he bring you someone to disciple? Because that's
That's
what
true.
he
That's true.
so
Now you have the Christian men's business group that you're
Christian
in.
Christian Businessmen's Connection. It's an international organization. Yeah.
Yeah,
About
that might
100
be a
countries.
place for them to start if they're
Sure. Yeah.
males. A good place to
The,
start.
the
Okay.
focus of that organization is evangelism and discipleship. So
Well, there you go. That's
There
their
you go.
goal. Okay,
There
that's
you
their
go.
mission. Okay, which chapter was the hardest for you to write and why?
I think the first one.
Oh, that getting started.
Getting started, getting
Yeah.
untracked, getting, figuring out how in the world was I going to assimilate all of this information and stories and whatever. And so, yeah, I would say the first one. Now, it's interesting, again, having no experience writing a book, and maybe other people do it differently. I did not write this book in chronological order. I didn't write the first chapter and the second chapter and the third chapter. I figured
Uh,
out a layout for it, and then depending on the day that I was writing, hey, I'm going to write about this particular story and this particular subject that turned out to be chapter 8 in the book. It was fascinating how that played together. So,
Great. Okay, well, what's one small obedience in that process that led to this big transformation?
well, the obedience is that God told me. He didn't ask me. He told me to write a book,
Yeah.
and He helped me. I mean, tremendously helped me. But that's the part that I'm most grateful for, is that I've been able to be obedient to do that and
Yeah.
to have it published. And here
Yeah.
we are.
Here we are.
Thank you.
Okay. So many believers are nervous about sharing their faith because, they don't want to be judged or misunderstood or even, that horrible rejection. Nobody wants to be rejected. What would you say to the person who wants to be bold but feels so scared, doesn't know where to go?
The first step in the book that I described, but there's 10 key skills, but the first one is to pray. Again, we keep talking about this, but
And we do
pray
keep
and
going back
ask
to that.
God,
Yeah.
right? Pray and ask God to bring somebody across your path that needs to know Him better. And I know I shared this with you the other day. Sometimes I just can't possibly think of anything I can say to start a conversation with somebody,
Uh-huh.
wherever it is, if you're sitting on an airplane or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And so when I try to do that and maybe it's not working, I'll say to the person, "Are you the reason I'm here?" And
Uh-huh.
you get these very like, "What are you talking about?" I say,
Yeah.
"Well, I prayed this morning that God would lead me to someone that needs to know Him better. Is that you?" "Well, I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it's not." And then the second point is, so I mean, it's you can find a way to start a conversation. I mean, you can be at a restaurant and you can say to the waitress, "We'd like to pray before our meal. Is there one thing we could pray for you about?" I mean,
Wow.
you'll see people start to cry at times.
Wow.
Some of them
Yeah.
know Christ and some of them don't, but
Yeah.
just simple little things. It's not complicated, and you don't have to be a biblical scholar. You just have to engage in a little conversation and start a relationship. And the second thing to remember, and this is where I think it really is tough for most people, you're not responsible for what the person says. You can't save them.
No,
Only God can save them.
that's right. Yeah.
He just wants to use you as the messenger, as the ambassador.
Yeah.
He wants you to share about Him.
Yeah.
And it's between that person and God whether they're going to turn
Yep.
their heart to Him.
That's
So,
right.
and the last part of this is you don't know what's going to happen after you have this encounter. Okay, I'm sitting on the airplane. I try to have a conversation with the guy about faith. And he says, "Listen, buddy, I don't want to hear that. Get out of my face. Leave me alone." Okay. You do not know what God's going to do in that person's life next week, 2 months from
Yeah.
now, 2 years from now. And He's going to be one that's going to come back to you in heaven and go, "I'm so sorry. I was so rude to you on the airplane. You were trying to share something important with me, and
Hmm.
I was so rude to you." You
Yeah.
just don't know. All you're supposed to do is share and give the results up to God.
Yes. Thank goodness. Okay. Now, this book, you've put a course with it. Like you've got a study guide and a course where churches can kind of actually have this and learn how to do this and learn how to break that curse of not sharing and discipling. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, God gave me a bigger vision for as you go after the book was published. that involved a small group curriculum, a study guide, a course. I found that, people can, especially on a subject that, is not easy to get started on. You can read the book and you can love it and you can learn from it, but you still got to take that step of going out there. And so the course is designed to teach you more practical things and to do role playing actually in the group to empower you or encourage you, instruct you, and inspire you to get out there in the world and do this as a lifestyle, essentially.
Yeah. It's got to be like learning to play the piano. You got to practice it and you got to exercise it to get good.
And I've done it plenty of times. I've gone out there and fell on my face and went, well, I guess I won't say that again. You just learn from it and it's fine. The other part of this is that, I think that there's several other pieces of this that God is now calling me to do, to build a community of as you go ambassadors. Okay. And so the hope and the plan at the moment is to have a website, to do podcasts, to do speaking engagements, all this sort of thing that would allow people to engage with other people who are in this same journey of sharing their faith. And there's also been a song written. I don't know, you might be able to guess the name of the song. You were pretty sharp, I thought, from our meeting the other day. What do you think? You're on mute, but...
I'm sorry. Is it called As You Go? I had to cough there for a second.
Good for you. Yes.
As You Go.
Called As You Go. And actually, this past weekend, I may have met the person who's going to take this song and do something very special with it.
Wonderful.
He's written songs for a lot of very famous or popular Christian artists and groups, and he's taking a look at it at the moment to see if he could do something with it. So,
that's great. Okay, so how can somebody out there get your book and take your course and get involved in all this big movement?
Well, the book is available in Kindle and paperback and hardcover on Amazon.
Yeah.
It's going to be available on the website. We had a website for the last couple of years, but it got destroyed, I guess is the right way to say it. It
fell through the cracks, unfortunately.
It fell. Yeah.
Wow.
It wasn't handled properly. Yeah. So we're in the process of building a new website that you might be involved in as we talk. And so you could obviously go to the website and, you could also even get a copy signed by the author. So I found out that, when you try to sell the book a couple of years from now at a garage sale, you might get a quarter for it if your author is actually signed it. So
it always makes it more special for sure. A whole quarter out of it.
And, in the near future, there's a Facebook page and there'll be lots of other social media and other ways to interact with us.
Wonderful. Okay. When we get this episode to share, we'll have to share some links in the bottom there for everybody to get a hold of that. Okay. Thank you for sharing your heart, your story, and your obedience with us today. Your message is one that the world truly does need, especially those of us called to build, lead, and walk out our faith every single day. Now, before we wrap up, I want to let you know that my group is creating a guest promo packet. It's going to have reels and everything for you to share and get your story out there. And I'd love it if you'd post it and tag the Builder's Edge podcast.
Yeah, happy to do that. It's been a pleasure to be on the podcast with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And to my listeners out there, if today stirred something in you, if Victor's story reminded you that your business is your mission field and that God can use you every day in your everyday life to impact others, I want to challenge you to take one small step this week. Not a giant leap, just one obedience, one conversation, one moment of boldness as you go. And if you're a contractor or business owner who wants to build with purpose, strength, and visibility and create a business that honors God and thrives, you know where to find me. Victor, again, thank you for being here. Listeners, thank you for tuning in. And remember, this is more than a podcast. This is your platform. Your story matters, and your edge is your advantage. I'll see you the next time on The Builder's Edge.